want to talk to you today about Stairway to Heaven. All through the ages and centuries, people have been building places of worship as their own stairways to heaven. Let me give you a few examples. This is a Cologne Cathedral in Germany. It was built in 1880. The tip rises to 515 feet high. It's quite high, isn't it? Here's a basilica called the Basilica of the Lady of Peace on the Ivory Coast. It was built in the 80s. It rises to 518 feet. There was much controversy when they built this because that little building you see there cost $330 million US. Controversy was because surrounding it was squatterkings. Couldn't have used that money more wisely, I asked. But anyway, one of the tallest religious places of worship in the world. This is another one from Germany. This is the old cathedral in Germany. Actually started construction in 1377, and it is the largest church in the world. Not the largest, the tallest church in the world. That is at 530 feet. You can see how tall it is. So this is the tallest church that we have in the world today. But when the Muslims heard about this, they decided to get in on action. So they decided to build a mosque. And this is a mosque they built. It is the 5th largest mosque in the world. It's found in Casablanca, Morocco. They took the minaret, which is that tower you see on all the mosques. It actually goes right up to 689 feet. It's quite tall, isn't it? Currently, this is the tallest religious building we have in the world. But then the Hindus, the Indians got on the action. They said, no, let's not be outdone by Muslims. So currently, as we speak, the Hindus are busy building a temple that will be 700 feet tall. Started construction, it will be ended by next year. This is an artist's impression of how their temple will look. Quite impressive, isn't it? This is the article it comes from. It says Stairway to Heaven. That's what got my message title, not from Led Zeppelin or you old folks. Alright, it came from this. And you want to say, it says Stairway to Heaven, huge 700-foot high Hindu temple in India, the world's tallest religious building. And blah, blah. What I like is this bottom part, this little insert over here. It says this, that's their Sanskrit. It says this: let a man raise himself by his own efforts. Let him not degrade himself. Let a man raise himself by his own efforts, whilst building his stairway to heaven. And therein lies the problem with religion. Because religious systems want to build their stairways to heaven by their own efforts, by their own works, independent of God and His sacrifice and what Jesus done for us. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. This was not the first one to reach the heavens or rather to be a stairway to heaven. In fact, one of the first temples ever built in the Bible, in the original name, it was Gate of God, or other translation was Stairway to Heaven. This is none other than the Tower of Babel. So let's open our Bibles to Genesis chapter 11 as we read about the Tower of Babel. Genesis chapter 11, the first 4 verses.
Not a whole word, and one language and a common speech. As men moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar, and settled there. They said to each other, come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They used brick instead of stone, and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city, with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves, and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth.
Amen. Thank you. Bless you. Well, as you know, we're busy with a series called Adam to Abraham. So before we even get into our Bible, let's just do a little bit of a recap. I've got this lovely chart. They say a picture, this is 1,000 words, and this will in a couple of seconds once I explain. Basically, on the your left-hand side here, we have from Adam all the way to Abraham, all the generations, and we have basically things like how old they are. All right, and that's basically. So I'm going to touch on 2 things quickly before we get into our Bible. And first of all, you'll notice how old these guys are over here. Adam was 930, then his son Seth 912, 5, 9, 10. We even get Methuselah at 969, the oldest man recorded in the Bible. The average age at that time, at these first 10 generations, was 912 years. That's pretty old, isn't it? And you think you're old. I feel old and I'm 45, so imagine how they feel. And you might think, well, they weren't real years, they were actually just ages or epochs. They weren't, they were literal years. There's nothing in the Bible to indicate otherwise, and right in the beginning in Genesis, when God created the first day, the day and night, a 24-hour day, and that same cycle went by throughout the Bible. There's nothing in the Bible to indicate that these were nothing other than real years, 12-year average. What I want you to see is that after the flood, what happens? It immediately jumps down. So these guys live good ages of 900. All of a sudden after the flood, the first one is 600, 400, 200. Eventually ends with Abraham on 175 years. Did you see that? You can see here. Woo! Very old, not very old. Why was that? Why after the flood all of a sudden the longevity of man dropped and decreased so suddenly, so quickly? Well, there's two reasons. One is they said that it was the diet that they ate. What did they eat before the flood? No meat. They only ate fruit, vegetables, and grain. So that was one thing. After the flood, they ate meat. So they said, well, this could be causing the sickness, and oh, it could be. This is a good theory. The other one is that famous theory called the canopy theory. The canopy theory we've spoken about before. That is that there was a canopy of vapor around the atmosphere of the earth. So we've got the earth, the atmosphere, and then water around that atmosphere. Right? People have said that if this was the case, the oxygen levels on Earth would be highly increased. And they found this. Archaeologists and paleontologists have found gum. Have you seen the movie Jurassic Park, the first one? No one saw it. Somebody had. They found a little mosquito in a gum of a tree. And that's actually the whole movie comes from. They found this gum with the mosquitoes in it, and they found in there pockets of air. So they thought, wow, this would be interesting to find out what the levels of oxygen back in those days. So they done it. They cracked it open, and they found out that the oxygen levels before the flood was 50% higher than they are today. 50% higher. That will make breathing just exciting. Right? You can run hundreds of kilometers and not even get tired. That's how good it was back then. So what happens is, not only will that increase levels of oxygen, it will also help the body heal itself faster. They actually do that today in what they call hyperbaric chambers. Have you heard of that? Hyperbaric oxygen chambers. For certain sicknesses, illnesses, even professional athletes use this. They'll put them in this chamber and they'll blast a whole lot of pure oxygen onto them. And it'll let their body heal faster. So that's what could have happened before the flood. What happened at the flood? The floodgates of heaven were opened and this canopy came down. Therefore, levels of oxygen weren't that high anymore. So those are two good reasons why the decrease in the years of ages could happen. The other thing I want you to see, this one always blows my mind when I think about it, and this is this section over here, where you see overlap of people here, of ages. That don't mean that those people lived at the same time. Yeah, it's logical and it's obvious. So Adam would have obviously lived with his son, and his grandson, and his great-grandson, and his great-great-grandson, and his great-great-great, and it goes all the way down. Do you notice that Adam was still alive when Lamech was alive? That was Noah's father. Isn't that amazing? That's like 10 generations down. Adam was still alive. What boggles me about that is the fact that there will be no discrepancy when it comes to the word of truth, isn't it? Because if someone went to Lamech, Noah's father, and said, listen, we've heard all about this Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden rubbish. That's all fairy tales. Lamech could have said, oh no, sorry, one from the horse's mouth. Right, just go north 30 miles, turn left, and you can go speak to Adam. Let Adam tell you about the Garden of Eden. Isn't that amazing? This whole area, all these people lived at the same time. They could go right to the source. Seth was still there. Cain was still wandering around. Eve was still alive. So at any given time, for this first long 1,000 years of the first history of the Genesis, they were all living at the same time, except for Enoch. Enoch lived only 365 years. What happened to Enoch? Well done, 10 out of 10. Yeah, he was translated and raptured up to heaven. There was two people that was taken up, Enoch and Elijah. Wow, you are sharp today. I can finish the lesson quickly. Alright, then what I want to notice is the same thing happens over here by Noah lived the longest one over here on his period because the flood happened. He lived for 950 years. And then the same thing happened. See all these guys? Noah was still alive when Abraham was alive. Isn't that incredible? So when Abraham was finally taken by God, getting to that next week, and God said to him, go to Canaan, he could have went there and said, listen, I just want to find out about this Noah story. And where did he go? He went to Noah. And he said, Noah, listen, tell me about that. And then he got all written down. So there was, today we can't even go 100 years back without questioning everything about history. We don't even know the 9/11 bombings, we don't know who killed JFK. But back in those days, you could go right to the source. And he could tell you exactly what happened. That's what I love about this. Doesn't it just blow your mind? The fact that these people have lived together. Wow, awesome. Alright, now we're going to get into the Tower of Babel. Like that's what it says in Genesis 11. Don't need to read it for us. And the whole earth was with one language and was with one speech. What language was that? Anybody want to take a guess? Good guess. It was, your guess is as good as mine. It doesn't say. It doesn't say. So you can say Russian, you can say English. But yes, Hebrew was the one that most scholars believe it was. And the reason for that is that famous chapter in Genesis called chapter 5. You all remember chapter 5, the one that you never ever read, never going to read? Remember that one with all the names of all the, Adam all the way down to Noah? And the one we just passed over, there's so much wealth in there. The reason why people say that the original language was Hebrew was because all these names in chapter 5 are Hebrew names with definite, distinct Hebrew meanings. So when Moses started to write the Bible, if it was not in Hebrew, they would have had obviously other names. So maybe not the Hebrew that we know today, maybe a Proto-Hebrew or maybe a more ancient Hebrew, but definitely some Hebrew form. And then it says, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. So let's look at a map to find out where Shinar is. The Old Testament times we know it. And the Shinar is anywhere from the Persian Gulf, yes, the two wonderful rivers, Euphrates and Tigris. The Shinar plain will be this whole area running right up from the Persian Gulf, right up there to the Lebanon mountains, Shinar. And now it says that they journeyed from the east. Actually, if you look in your Bibles, there will be two translations. The NIV will say they journeyed eastward, and the King James will be just the opposite of that. It says from the east. Interesting why two translations will be so different. It's important to know why though. After Noah landed on the mountains of Ararat, it could be anywhere in this region. I told you before, it doesn't have to be Mount Ararat. According to the Bible, it could be any of these mountains right over here. So they landed on one of those mountains, they journeyed southward and then eastward to the plains of Shinar. So that sounds. The other one is that they landed somewhere over here and they journeyed to the east. Either one is plausible, but that one sounds a more practical, logical one. Here's another map to show you the plains of Shinar. Anybody see Shinar on that map? If you're not, you're blind. Or put your glasses on. Shinar, alright. What I wanted to show you this map was because what current country was, or is now today where the plains of Shinar was? Iraq. Iraq. Isn't it interesting that Babel was in Iraq? Abraham came from Iraq. We also got him on Eden. In Iraq, in the Persian Gulf. I'm only surprised if the mountains of Ararat, where Noah's Ark is actually found, is in Iraq. Isn't it interesting that most of the early history of the Bible, everything is found in Iraq, Saddam Hussein's territory. Long gone now. We're going to focus our attention on this part called Babel. Alright, so let's carry on reading. It says this, and they came to one another, and they said, come let us build bricks, make bricks and burn them thoroughly. Why did they burn them? If they sun-baked bricks, they could have built a nice house like this church, but they wouldn't have been able to build a high tower. They need to burn them so it solidifies more so they could build higher. Yeah, that's the reason they burned them. So they used brick and stone and they used tar and mortar. And they said, come let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into heaven. Let us make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we'll be scattered with the face of the whole earth. Remember God's instruction to Noah, just a generation before this was, go multiply and scatter across the whole earth. What do? They gathered together. And now I want you to notice something. Do you see the phrase, the Tower of Babel, in their verse? No. The phrase, the Tower of Babel, is not in the Bible. The primary construction was the city. You see that city. The secondary construction phase was the tower. They were going to build a city, and then in that city would be a tower. And you notice, what's the name of the city? Nobody's saying anything. Yeah, because it doesn't say anything. We think it's Babel because it says that later on, God changed its name to Babel. So what was the city's original name? Give me a clue. Anybody want to take $500? Let's see. $500 straight from Job. $1,000 straight from Ronald. Nothing. People claim, scholars claim that this first original city was actually none other than the great city of Babylon. Who thought of Babylon? Well done, you get $500. Job, just make it $500. Thanks, So it was actually Babylon. And the Bible, in the previous chapter, gives us some nice details about Babylon. It says this. It says in Genesis chapter 10, Cush was the father of Nimrod. It stopped there. Noah had his 3 sons, Japheth, Shem, and Ham. Everyone say Ham. Ham. Not food related. Ham. He had a son, Cush. Everyone say Cush. Cush. There we go, Cush. Had a son called Nimrod, who became a mighty warrior on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That's why he said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. Nimrod means rebel. This wasn't a good guy. That translation is actually wrong there. Before the Lord, it says before the Lord, but the original Hebrew means in opposition to the Lord. He was a guy that stood up in defiance of the Lord and said, to hell with you and your ways. I'm going to get all the people together and I'm going to build my own little empire right here in this little plains of Shinar. He was a rebel, he had a rebellious heart, and he fought against God and everything that God stood for. And it says the first settlers of his kingdom was what? Babylon. And then Uruk, Akkad, and then Shinar. And then from the lower plains of Shinar, he went up north to Assyria, and he made more empires and more cities, and one of the greatest ones he made up north was the city of Nineveh. Who went to Nineveh in the Bible? Jonah. Yeah, Jonah went to Nineveh. So all these cities that we read about in the Bible, Babylon, Nineveh, was all started by this man called Nimrod. Alright, so that's what it says there. And even today, if we look on Google Map, you'll actually find the ruins of Babylon. They've actually found the ruins of Babylon. And here we can see Iraq. It's about 55 miles south of Baghdad. Baghdad is the capital of Iraq. And here's a Google Map image of those ruins. There you can see at the top the palace. This is Babylon, the ancient Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon. And here we can see at the bottom a little mound. Everybody see a little square there? It's a little foundational mound in the language of Babylonians. It's called Uitenhage. And that is actually a tower built by Nebuchadnezzar. There we can see the mound. They found about 30 of these different towers, at least ruins of towers, all through that area. 2 of them were found right there in the vicinity of Babylon. This one's a significant one because it was so big. They say that the tower would have reached up to 300 feet, which was a monstrous construction at that time. It was built by Nebuchadnezzar. They didn't actually know how it looked though, because you see, this is all that's left. So they saw some tiers here, but they didn't know how it actually looked. Until 2011, they found this carving, this one over here on the left. And what they found on it, even you can see there carefully, you can see the steps there. And then what it is actually the tower itself. And there's Nebuchadnezzar next to it. So this is one they found, which gave us good indication of how this tower looked. This was one built by Nebuchadnezzar. He called it the foundation of heaven and earth. And even in his own writings, he says that he's built his temple, his tower, on top of another older one. And this is how it would have looked in the days of Nebuchadnezzar. This is Babylon. You can see that great tower, 300 feet high, and all around it. As he said even in his own chronicles, that he built this tower on top of the old existing tower that was already there. And what tower was that? The Tower of Babel. Yeah, exactly. And so this is a good artist's impression of how Babel would have looked back in the day, the early first Babylon, before Nebuchadnezzar's time. This is in the time of Nimrod. So there's Nimrod, he lived and he built this big beautiful tower, this big beautiful city, all in defiance of God. He wanted to raise this up to the heavens. Also a bit of a faulty translation, because everyone kind of knows that you won't be able to build a tower up to heaven. I mean, logically speaking, you will never get that on. They knew that. The translation should not be to reach the heavens, but rather to be dedicated to the heavens. This temple was dedicated to the stars and the planets. The zodiac, who believes in the horoscopes here? Nobody put up your hand, people, wicked people. The horoscope and the 12 signs of the zodiac come from this temple. They've actually found all these signs of the zodiac on this thing. So there we go. So this is how it started. Nimrod started to build his temple, and he built this great tower to reach up to heaven. And then what happened? Then God saw it and he started to do something about it. So it said, but the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the men were building. The Lord said, is if one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they planned will be impossible. Who knows what would have happened if God didn't intervene? It would just, there would have been this complete unified empire against God, and the world would have been against him. And then he says in verse 7, come, let us go down and confuse their language, so that they will not understand each other. Why does God say us? Instead of playing on words? Because the people say, let us build bricks and let us build the tower. So is God just using the same thing? He said, well, let us go down. No, he's saying us because God is plural. Did you know that? God is the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. God is a plural God. Do you know that every time I've mentioned this before, if you see the words E-L in the word, like Bethel, Renel, what does E-L stand for? God. Yes. So when you see that word L, it always stands for God. But you know when God uses his own name in the Bible, every time you see the word God in the Bible, from Genesis, it's the word Elohim. You know why? Elohim is plural. And we don't see this here only, we see this in the first chapter of Genesis. When God makes man, he says the same thing. Let us make man in our image. Isn't that weird? He's using plurality because God is a Trinity. God is a Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. And then it says this, that the Lord scattered them from all of the earth, and they stopped building the city. All the paintings we see of the Tower of Babel is the unfinished tower, isn't it? And all of it, you see the unfinished, unfinished, unfinished. But the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says they stopped building the city. The tower was probably finished. That would probably be their first point, build the tower, and then build the rest of it. So that's just a bit of correcting people's impression of what actually happened here. They stopped building the city. That is why it's called what? Babel. Because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. Very interesting, the name Babel. The word there, B-A-B-E-L, is Hebrew for confusion. Alright? End of story, confusion. The original word for Babylon is Babil, with an I. Everyone say Babil. It's a different word altogether. This is the ancient Babylonian word. And you know what it means? It means gate of God. Bab, gate. Il or Ilu is God. So the ancient name of Babylon was gate of God or stairway to heaven. Babil. This is not the same word. Completely different word. It's a Hebrew word. It means confusion. People get so confused. And even more so because, remember I told you that the Hebrew language has only consonants. Remember that? It hasn't got vowels. So Babel in Hebrew would be BBL. Is that right? Yeah? And what would Babil be? BBL. They wouldn't know the difference because of there's different vowels that weren't there. And this confused scholars from day one, man. When they started translating the Bible, the early translators got guilty more confused with these two words. And even today our Bible is mixed up between Babil and Babel. The only two times Babel is actually mentioned in the Bible is in these two chapters, Genesis 10 and 11. All the rest of the time, the translators just say, listen, you just need to stick to one thing, it's going to be Babylon. Babylon, Babylon, Babylon. And so the same name for Babel is used throughout the Bible for Babylon. The name means confusion. And then the Lord scattered them all over the earth. Just scattered them. From there he said, you guys go here, you guys go here, you guys go here. Now we have to understand, this is our last part of the message. An important part. And it comes from the previous chapter. Chapter 10. Because the Bible is not always chronological. Chronological means in a time sequence. Chapter 10 should actually come after this. So in your Bibles, you can put a footnote there, put an arrow, and go right around to the next page. Right? You can do that, Joe. I don't mind. Alright? So because chapter 10 comes after this verse. Now let's read chapter 10. It says this. Noah. It said that these are generational sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. I said those three names earlier, three sons. And to them sons were born. And now chapter 10 is like chapter 5. We just don't read it. Has anybody read chapter 10? No, you haven't, because it's the most boring chapter in the Bible. All it is like chapter 5 has got a whole list of names. You get to the third verse and you don't even know how to pronounce those words, and then you just turn the page. We finish. All you read is the flood and the Tower of Babel. But this one, just like chapter 5, there's so much wealth of information. It says that this is the account of Ham, Japheth, Noah's sons. Verse 2 says the sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. Anybody want to come up and say that with me? Okay. Verse 6 says the sons of Ham was Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Verse 22 says the sons of Shem were Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. And now you know why we don't read that, right? Because it's rubbish, isn't it? That means nothing to you. I know baby's thinking, why, Raymond, why? But these names mean nothing to us unless we know what those names mean. You see, because Gomer was a person, and he went to a land, and he settled there, and that land became called Gomer. So we can understand where these people ended up by knowing the names. Alright, so let me show you a map. So at the top here, we see this section. This is Japheth. He had a son, Javan, Tiras, Gomer, Magog, Meshech, and Tubal. What country is that today? Anybody know? Greece. That area is Romania, Bulgaria, Eastern Europe countries. Magog, anybody know where that is? Russia. Gomer over here is Ukraine, Poland, and a lot of Germany. Meshech is also the southern steppes of Russia. So all this area here is Russia and Europe. Let me ask you a question. What color are the people in Russia and Europe? What color is their skin? White. Well done, guys. White. So Japheth and his sons went to Europe and Russia, and they became the white-skinned people. Biblical. Let's go to Ham, the other son. He had sons called Lut, Put, Mizraim, Cush, and Canaan. They all ended up in Africa. This is Egypt, Ethiopia. Lut is Lydia. Mizraim and Put is actually Sudan and Egypt together. Canaan is the southern part of Egypt, the Sinai Peninsula. Here's a question for you. What color are the people in Africa? What color is their skin? Dark, black, dark skin, yes. Do you see the difference immediately? This is Genesis chapter 10. It tells you exactly where you come from. Put up your hand in this church if you're white, if you have white skin. That's all of you except for me. Just put up your hands. Right? Come on now. So now you know where you come from. If you had family tree records, and we don't obviously, but if you had records, you would trace your lineage right back to one of these sons of Japheth, because you are white skin individual. Awesome, isn't it? Lee, maybe, I'm not sure, alright? Yeah, but we're coming. There's a son left, Shem is the most important one. Shem has his family, and they settle right there in the Middle Eastern region, Aram, Arstax, Ushur, Medai, Elam, not Cush, that's the wrong one, and Lut. Turkey, Israel, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia. And this is an important one because this is where Jesus comes from. This is, have you heard of the phrase that often in the papers and the news is anti-Semitic? Have you heard of that? That means you're against Jews. Do you know that? Why? Because Semitic comes from Shem. Because he was the originator of the Jewish people. So this is where people like certain people in this church come from. Light tan people. Whoa, girl! It would be not dark people like from Africa, not white people from Russia, but the light tan, the people of the Middle East, the Arabians, the Jewish people, the Indians, the Chinese. They all come from this area. From here, they eventually move this way eastward towards India and eventually end up in Russia and Japan. So now you know where the Japanese people come from. Now you know where you come from. Did you know that before? You don't know where you come from. You haven't got a cooking clue where you come from.
I come from a mother.
And obviously we come from South Africa. So how did we? Because the guys in the navigation days came from here and they went all the way down to the Cape of Good Hope. That's where we come from. Think about the colours for a second. I'm not using it just because it's easier. I just want to ask you, well, where did the colours come from? Because they in South Africa, well, they mixed between the black and the white. When young from Rebecca got here, they see a nice a black lady and go, woohoo! And they say some coloured children. That's a misconception of South Africans, unfortunately. The history of South Africa is very simple. Before the whites got here, before the blacks got here, the colours were already here. The Bushmen, the Khoisan. They were already here. They were the first people in South Africa before the blacks came from the north, before we came from Europe. That's not a biblical fact, that's a fact of anthropology and history. Right, the question is not were they here or mixed or whatever, the question is where did they come from? Exactly. Because I've told you where we all come from. How did colours get to the bottom of South Africa? You know what the theory is? That the coloured people are actually a lost tribe of Japan. So they come from, they travel here, and then somehow these Japanese people ended up in South Africa. Ta-da! Khoisan, Bushmen. And if you look at the similarities between colour and the pigment of skin and how they look, there is a similarity between people of the Orient and coloured people, especially the early Bushman, Khoisan people. If you liken them to the Japanese and Chinese, there's a very big similarity between the two. Interesting, isn't it? Just a theory, but this is the bulk of where you and I come from. And it's all from that beautiful chapter in Genesis chapter 10. It's important because this is what happened after Babel. So you won't be able to understand what happens with Abraham unless you understand this. So there we go, we finished. The moral of the story, the principle behind the Tower of Babel is actually very simple. I'll actually keep this on me. And that is that even today, religious systems are still building their ways up to heaven. They still want to build a stairway to heaven independent of God. They still think by their own works and their own efforts, they can get a ticket into heaven. And that is so untrue. All religions around the world, Muslim, Islam, Judaism, even certain Christian sects, all believe that we have to do something to get into heaven. Christianity stands alone in its one simple principle, and that is no, you can only get to heaven through God and His Son Jesus Christ. Religion is man trying to reach God. Christianity is God reaching down to man. It's not by your own works, it's by God's grace. This is what it says in Ephesians. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not of yourselves. Forget about your bricks and your Tower of Babel. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's a gift of God. It's a free gift. Not by works, so that you can't boast. That's what it's about. And it sounds so simple. It actually sounds foolish to people, you know. They think that it's Christianity, the simple preaching of Jesus Christ saving you, that's ridiculous. But this is what the Bible says. For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness. But the preaching of the cross to us who are saved, it's the power of God. There is no other power that you can ever get other than the simple power of salvation. And that is the preaching of the cross. I will go to my dying day in this church preaching the cross. There is nothing else that will ever save you and get you to heaven. The only stairway you need to be interested in is the cross. That's the only gate. Jesus speaks about this in Matthew. He says, enter through the narrow gate, for the wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction. And many enter through it, but small is the gate, and narrow is the road that leads to life. And only a few find it. Who is that gate? I said who, not what. Who is that gate? That gate is Jesus. And he says it himself. John 10, he says, yes, I am the gate. Those who come in from me will be saved. There is a Babylon, but it's not the old city ruins of Babylon. Babylon is Jesus, because he is the gate of God. Babel is Jesus. He is our stairway to heaven. There is no other way. Forget about building your towers of self-improvement and self-effort and works, because it's not going to get you anywhere. That's what the whole principle of the Tower of Babel is. God was saying, listen, stop this. Please don't try to get to me, because you cannot. You cannot get to me. You are sinners, and I'm a holy God. But I can get to you. And that's what the principle is. God says, I'm going to come down. I'm going to send my Son down to earth, and He's going to save you. And that's going to be your tower. That's going to be your gate to getting to me. That's what the whole principle and message behind the Tower of Babel is. So as you walk out with this new information about the Tower of Babel and the city of Babylon, have a deeper understanding to what that all means. That Jesus is our stairway to heaven. In Jesus' name. Amen. All right, that's our last